Welcome back, everybody, for another deep dive. This time, we're going to be looking at a really unique perspective on India's fight for independence. We're going to be talking about Sri Aurobindo. He was a real believer that decolonization had to go hand in hand with something he called spiritual enhancement. So, to do that, we're going to be looking at this academic article. It's all about one of his really famous speeches. It's called the Uttarpara speech.
Yeah, that's a really fascinating one. It comes right after his release from prison in 1909. He had been imprisoned by the British for about a year. And this speech kind of marks the point where he begins to really bring in his spiritual insights into the movement.
Huh. So, I mean, usually imprisonment's seen as a setback. Are you saying it was like a catalyst for him?
Yeah. I mean, that's a really good way of putting it. I think to understand that shift, though, it's helpful to just think about his background a little bit. I mean, he was an incredibly brilliant guy, fluent in 9 languages, deeply immersed in Indian culture and philosophy. And he pretty quickly rose to become a leader in the independence movement, advocating for what they called Purna Swaraj, so complete and total freedom.
Wow. So he didn't want any like incremental changes or just negotiating for more rights. He wanted complete.
Exactly. Total liberation from British rule was the goal. And this Uttarpara speech gives us a glimpse into how his thinking really evolved during that year in prison. He describes it as a period of intense spiritual training, almost as if it was divinely ordained to prepare him for his role in India's liberation.
It's remarkable that he saw it as a positive experience. I mean, I'm curious to learn more about this whole concept of Dharma Yuga you mentioned earlier. How does that fit in?
So this is really key to understanding Aurobindo's perspective. He believed that his imprisonment, and actually the entire fight for independence, was a dharmyuddha, which is a righteous war against oppression. And he even talks about feeling a divine presence guiding him. He was drawing strength and wisdom from the Bhagavad Gita during his time in jail.
So it wasn't just a political battle for him, it was a spiritual struggle.
Exactly. He began to see the entire movement through this lens of Dharma-yuddha, and it really informed everything he did, his actions and his message to the people.
That's interesting, this whole blending of politics and spirituality. How did his understanding of Hinduism factor into all of this?
Yeah, his Hinduism wasn't conventional at all. He saw it as a way of life, a source of inner strength and unity, and he believed it was crucial for achieving true decolonization.
Okay, but how is this different than how Hinduism was practiced at the time?
Well, he felt like the real essence of Hinduism had been obscured by Western influence. So he kind of looked beyond all the rituals and traditions and focused on the core principles that he believed could empower people, both individuals and the nation as a whole. And one key concept was this idea of Sanatan Dharma, which means eternal law.
Okay, eternal law, what does that mean exactly? Why was it so important to him?
He saw it as the foundation of Indian identity, untainted by, all that colonial influence. So it was a way to reconnect with the true essence of Hinduism and to use that as a force for liberation, personal and national.
So it wasn't just about like reclaiming political control, it was about reclaiming their spiritual and cultural identity too.
Exactly. It was about decolonizing the mind and the spirit, just as much as the land. And this is where his time in prison becomes so significant. There's this really powerful moment where he describes seeing Vasudeva, who's a Hindu deity, in the faces of the prisoners he was with.
Wow. So he's finding the divine in these people who are considered criminals by society. What does that tell us about how his worldview is changing?
It was a profound transformation. He was seeing past the labels and judgments imposed by the system and recognizing a shared humanity, a divine spark in everyone. And this idea of unity and interconnectedness became really central to his whole philosophy.
So it sounds like his vision of a free India went beyond just political independence.
Absolutely. He believed that true liberation had to start from within. He argued that if individuals were still mentally enslaved, true national liberation wouldn't be possible.
So to achieve Purna Swaraj, that complete independence, they needed some kind of inner freedom too.
Yeah. And he saw Hinduism, particularly these principles of Sanatan Dharma, as the path to that inner transformation. He felt that by rediscovering their spiritual roots and tapping into that inner strength, Indians could finally break free from all the mental and spiritual shackles of colonialism.
It's like he was reframing the whole struggle for independence. It wasn't just about territory or political systems anymore. It was about reclaiming their soul as a nation.
That's a great way to put it. He was calling for a deep and fundamental shift in consciousness, both individually and collectively.
Okay, so we've been exploring this idea of decolonization as spiritual enhancement. And he believed that India needed to achieve some kind of inner transformation to become truly free.
Right, it wasn't just about getting rid of the British. It was about a much deeper kind of awakening.
So how did he see Hinduism playing a role in all of this process of decolonizing the mind and spirit?
Well, he looked to the ancient scriptures, like the Bhagavad Gita, for example, but not just as religious tests, more like guides for living, for self-mastery, overcoming challenges.
So it wasn't like he was calling for people to go back to all these strict practices or anything?
No, not at all. It was about finding a different kind of inspiration, a framework for action, personal and societal change, like, for instance, the concept of dharma, often translated as duty. He saw that as a call to fight for justice, to resist oppression.
So he was kind of reinterpreting these ancient ideas through this lens of the struggle for freedom.
Exactly. And he saw the principles of karma and yoga as tools for actually navigating that struggle. Karma, in this context, emphasized the importance of right action, while yoga was all about achieving union with the divine, that state of inner peace and liberation.
This is pretty unique, combining these spiritual concepts with political action. Did that resonate with people back then?
Oh, yeah. Aurobindo's message really struck a chord with a lot of Indians who were yearning for freedom. He offered a way to connect their struggle with something bigger than themselves, like a spiritual purpose, and that gave them strength, resilience.
He gave them a sense of agency, a way to participate in their own liberation that went beyond just politics.
Exactly. It wasn't just about voting or protesting. It was about a much deeper kind of empowerment. And you have to remember, this was a time when India was really divided, especially along caste lines.
Right. Did Aurobindo's vision for a unified India challenge those old social hierarchies?
Absolutely. He believed that true unity was impossible as long as those divisions persisted. He saw this inherent divinity in all beings, regardless of their social standing.
So it wasn't just a personal anecdote, that story about seeing Vasudeva and the prisoners.
No. It reflected his belief in a shared humanity that transcended those social constructs.
So he wasn't just fighting for political independence. It was about creating a society where everyone could thrive,
Precisely.
regardless of their background or their status.
It was about dismantling those systems of oppression,
Right.
both internal and external.
Right. And he believed that India, with its ancient wisdom and spiritual heritage, had a unique role to play in all of this. He saw the struggle in India as a microcosm of a much larger global struggle against oppression and injustice.
So he was thinking beyond India's borders.
Oh, yeah. His vision was global. He believed that a free India could be a beacon of hope for the rest of the world, sharing its wisdom, contributing to a more just and harmonious global society.
What an ambitious vision.
It was. It required a profound transformation, both within India and on the world stage. He believed that India could become a guiding light for humanity.
Yes, by embracing its spiritual heritage and achieving that true inner freedom.
All right, so we spent this whole deep dive talking about Sri Aurobindo and how he saw this connection between decolonization and spiritual enhancement. He really felt that a truly free India needed more than just, political change. It needed this deep inner transformation within its people.
Yeah, he saw that as absolutely essential, both for actually achieving independence and then for building a just and harmonious society afterwards.
So it was a pretty bold vision. I'm wondering how it all played out. Did India actually achieve that spiritual freedom alongside its political independence?
Well, that's a tough question. There's not really a simple answer. India did gain independence in 1947, but whether that also brought about the kind of spiritual awakening that Aurobindo was hoping for, it's hard to say for sure.
So you're saying his vision wasn't completely realized?
Well, there are definitely arguments to be made on both sides. I mean, on one hand, Aurobindo's influence on the independence movement was huge. His writings and his speeches really inspired a lot of people. To see this fight for freedom as something truly righteous, a dharmita.
He definitely helped elevate the movement.
Right. And his teachings on things like yoga and meditation and self-realization, those are still super relevant today, not just in India, but all over the world.
So his impact goes way beyond just the politics of his time.
Absolutely. But then on the other hand, India is still dealing with a lot of challenges, party inequality, social divisions, and that kind of suggests that the deep societal transformation Aurobindo envisioned, it hasn't been fully achieved.
It seems like getting political freedom was just the first step on a much longer road.
Yeah, and that's a really important point. Aurobindo himself always saw true freedom as this ongoing process, a journey of continuous self-discovery and growth. It's not really a destination, it's more like a direction you're moving in.
So even though they won independence, the work to create that truly just and harmonious society, it's still going on.
Right, and this idea of freedom as a constant process, It might even be more relevant today than it was back then, with all the complex global challenges we're facing. This need for both individual and collective spiritual growth, it feels pretty urgent.
So what can we take away from all this? What can we actually apply to our own lives from Aurobindo's ideas?
Hmm. I think the biggest takeaway is this idea that real change starts from within. If we want to make the world better, we need to work on cultivating things like inner peace, compassion, understanding, and that starts with each of us individually.
It's about like becoming the change we want to see.
Exactly. And Aurobindo actually gives us some tools for doing that
Hmm.
through, self-reflection, meditation,
Yeah.
connecting with our own potential. His ideas might be rooted in the context of India's fight for freedom, but they offer this really timeless wisdom that can help us navigate all the complexities in our own lives and contribute to building a more just and harmonious world.
Well, this has been a really interesting deep dive. I feel like he's challenged us to think about freedom as more than just this political idea, but as this journey of growth and transformation that starts inside each of us.
Yeah, his life and work offer a powerful reminder that the pursuit of a better world requires both external action and internal change. It's a journey we can all be a part of, no matter where we are in the world or what we're struggling with.
Well, thank you so much for joining us on this exploration of Sri Aurobindo's ideas. We hope you got some new perspectives out of it and maybe even a bit of inspiration to keep going on your own journey of self-discovery. Until next time, keep diving deep.